the speed at which you eat is correlated with a number of health outcomes. We know that people eat at different rates. I was taught to eat very fast as a junior doctor because otherwise my bleep would go off and I wouldn't do this. So most doctors eat very fast. And when they do surveys of saying, are you a fast eater or a slow eater? We all know the last one to finish or the first one in families, etc. There is a correlation with poor health and the fast eaters. They tend to be more likely to be obese, more likely to have type 2 diabetes, more likely to have heart disease, etc. So it's rather upsetting to think that, that sometimes through no fault of your own, you did a job that trained you to eat very fast. Or some do it in large families if they think their brothers are going to steal all the food, for example. That's another common one. But there's been quite a lot of research about chewing food and biting and eating fast. And the food companies have cottoned on to this. And actually, they have created foods that make it impossible not to eat it fast.
Yeah.
So that you're getting this sort of feeling that you have to keep chewing. And before you know it, you've finished the pack of biscuits. You've eaten far more than you wanted to. These are foods that are absolutely designed to make us overeat. And in Victorian times, they used to have these ways of dieting that you have to sort of chew your food 200 times, every mouthful.
Well, Tim, I asked you this question at the beginning about chewing each mouthful 32 times, which seems weirdly specific, but we had a question about it. So clearly that was a piece of advice one of our listeners got. Is there any truth to this idea that if you chew 32 times, somehow you'll be healthier?
Well, in general, the more you chew, the slower you will eat, and this will have some benefits. Pinning down exactly how much you should chew is really pretty impossible.
Yeah.
Most people chew somewhere between 15 to 45 times is a sort of rough range. But it's hugely variable about what you're eating, what age you are, environment. So I don't think we should be having strict rules. That would also make eating like a punishment, which is not what we're about. It's eating is for pleasure. As an experiment, next time people who are listening eating something, just try chewing it for twice as long as you would normally do and see what happens.
Or take the Japanese trick, which is they have this great saying, hara hachibu, which means that when you're 80% full, stop. You will overeat if you eat too fast because it does take time for your gut to tell your brain, okay, I've had enough, I'm there. The other thing I would sort of suggest is that when you look at a food, if it's not designed to be refolded and put back in its wrapper, be very skeptical. So one of the big differences between mass-produced chocolate and craft chocolate is craft chocolate comes in lovely wrappers, not just because they look beautiful, because you can put the chocolate back in because you're not supposed to eat the whole bar in one go. Whereas if you buy a mass-produced chocolate bar, try putting it back in the wrapper. It's pretty much impossible.
And Spencer, Tim's talked a lot about, the health impacts of eating more slowly, but I know you're really interested in other benefits.
I mean, one of the tragedies today is that over 20% of American food is now consumed in cars, which is not exactly going to be conducive to savoring your food. You are definitely going to be wolfing it down like there's no tomorrow. But even here in the UK, even people who work all too often do exactly what Tim and you were describing, which is they just sit at their desks. 80% of people sit at their desks, even though they're in a work environment with other people, wolfing down their food. And so from a social and from a mental health perspective, it's really not a good aspect to bring forward at all. The other angle to eating slowly is that it's a bit like sort of learning to swim or learning to do like a musical instrument. It actually, if you learn the language of flavor, it gives you another set of tools. And just as when you learn the knowledge, if you were one of those people before we had GPS and was a black cab driver, it sort of activated different parts of your brain. There's a lot of evidence now to suggest that actually learning the language of flavor is a great way of sort of, energizing different parts of your brain too.
I did hear a fact that was about in the average British lunch, which is this meal deal, is usually eaten in under 5 minutes. You think about it, what are you buying? You're buying soft bread that doesn't have you don't have to chew. It's just like baby food, really.
Yeah, it's hyper-palatable.
The filling is mush inside. You might have an orange juice and
which will be full of sugar
and salty, fatty crisps, and that's what most people are eating. It does generally take about 20 minutes before you start to feel full. That's what manufacturers are trying to get all the food in really quick time so that your brain doesn't say, hey guys, we're full here, we don't need more food.
Right. And then they'll also add a bit of sweetness to the end of the meal deal, because they also know that even if they have somehow, missed a trick and that you are feeling a bit full, once you see something sweet, your upper intestine sweet receptors will basically say, I want some of that too. So that'll basically encourage
the second stomach.
Yeah, the second stomach.
So Tim, I know that's led you to focus a lot more on this idea of mindful eating. And it's not something you were really talking about when I first met you 8 years ago, but I know it's become really important now as we think about what we're doing at ZOE. Could you, I guess, explain a bit what that is and why sort of your scientific research has led you to focus so much more on this than, when we first met?
In a way, what mindful eating is trying to do is to combat what the food companies are trying to distort. So it's our way of rebelling. And to do that, it's about looking at the food you're eating in a different way. So rather than just seeing it as a source of energy, you're actually taking time to look at it and savor it. And so this is how we're developing the app, very much with this in mind, so that people with the ZOE app will take a picture of their food, so they're snapping it first. So that just allows you a moment to look at what's on your plate and evaluate it. How many plants have you got on there? Is it healthy? How much processed food is there? And then you get the results, and that's the discovery phase. So this is where the app helps you work out what's actually in that food, whether it's the macronutrients you're interested in, or is it risky processing? What is the overall score going to be good for you? Is it good for your gut microbes? And this is very much a long-term experience. So you become slowly a food expert by doing this. And our food choices are the most important choices we make every single day for our health. I use it now as a way of understanding what I'm eating. There's always some new food I don't know about. And I love counting my plants to see if that's all part of, how am I achieving that at the end of the week? And this is all part of my way of mindful eating. And, even people like me are still learning because of this amazing new technology with the AI and things that can help us.
At ZOE, we know small changes can create big results. Subscribing to this channel is one such change. It helps us reach more people and lets us bring you more of the latest science on health and nutrition. So if this video has given you something useful, subscribing is the easiest way for you to give us a little back.